Hey, in Minnesota, we've got Senator John Jasinski with us on the phone from the state capitol in St. Paul, right, John?
That's right, Gordy. I'm actually in my office at the Capitol today.
And you sound crystal clear. You've got a good phone system there at the Capitol that we've all paid for.
Yeah, I guess we do. It is a new system about 2 years ago.
Wow, that is really clean. Very nice. We'll have to do this more often, although I'd prefer to have you in studio. But anyway...
I like staying here, Gordy. Then you have to look at what I look like down there with your video camera.
Well,
much better up here.
There you go. Maybe we could do it from your office sometime. I used to do that with Representative Swigum quite often, a Capitol show. Maybe we could get legislators from our area from the Capitol. And, of course, it gets pretty nutsy at the end of the session, right?
Yeah, it does. You know, we had our first, what I would call a real long day. We went into session yesterday at about 10:45 and stayed in session until last night at about, I think it was 10:30 about. So we were in a good portion of the day.
So far, how do you think the session's gone?
Well, it's going okay. Obviously, you know, our biggest thing is the tax conformity with what they've done at the federal level. We have a $329 million surplus. So what we're trying to do as Republicans here in the Senate is trying to address some of the issues that we've seen in the last year. School safety and mental health being a big one of that, and trying to come up with a bill that addresses those issues. It's a supplemental year, so it's not our main budget year. So typically this is more of a bonding year, which we're doing that as well. But obviously, there's some issues out there that we need to address, that being mental health, school safety, and the tax conformity bill, as well as transportation. So we have a surplus, or it's a supplemental budget year. So we're trying to keep it small but address the issues.
Yeah, that surplus, some lawmakers I know view it as a windfall, that they can, spend it on other things, and we probably should look at it more like our own personal taxes. You don't want to get too much of a refund. You'd rather not pay in, right? But you'd like to be closer than the surplus that we have.
Absolutely. That is, what that shows is, and we believe that we've been working on reducing taxes for business and people, gave some tax breaks back last year, about $650 million. And we hope that falls into the hands of the people that are spending the money, which makes them spend more in our community and raises and increases the inflow of taxes to the state. So we need to adjust that to make sure that we're not capturing too much and keeping the money in the hands of the citizens out and throughout the state of Minnesota is our goal. And
last time I talked to you, I know your Highway 14 legislation was very high on your priority list. Where does that stand right now?
That will always stays at the top of my list. I have, I think, about 5 or 6 different bills in specifically on Highway 14. There's a stretch of about 12.6 miles remaining between Otana and Dodge Center. It's not safe because it goes from 4-lane to 2-lane to 4-lane. And there's also, our industry is telling us it's a lot of industry travels on Highway 14 up that corridor from Rochester all the way through Otana, Waseca, into Mankato, and then west of that. So we want to make sure that we can increase that. I think it's the longest stretch of highway that's not 4-lane throughout the state, given the population, so we'll continue on that. I do have one bill that breaks it down to the next section, which is Section 2, as they call it, which gets it about another, I think it's about 5 miles, almost to Claremont. That's about $37 million. And that one is pretty much shovel-ready, so if we can get the funding for that, that will continue that stretch to get it going. Obviously, we'd like to do that in one whole stretch, but that whole project is about $177 million. And, we are concerned, or I'm concerned, Highway 14 in my district, but every district has some type of highway, something like that. Either it's Highway 10 up in northern Minnesota or Highway 23. We all have something similar. I think 14 is the longest and the most important, but obviously that's my district, so everybody has that in their district. So it's I don't say a fight for money, but it's trying to get the money spent equally so it's done throughout the state. Yeah, we'll visit more. Don't go away, okay, John? I got to get an opening market report here, courtesy of the KDHL Agri Boosters and Harry Brown's and Metal Services, also bringing you our opening market report. And we'll visit more with Senator Jasinski as he's in his office at the state capitol in St. Paul. Don't you love technology? When AM Minnesota. In on our AM Minnesota show, Senate District 24 State Senator John Jasinski is with us from his office in St. Paul. Again, John, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. You bet, Gordy. Always happy to do it.
I really appreciate it. Now, we were talking about transportation before the break. We probably should continue in that vein. I understand that $850,000 is being earmarked for a study on extending the North Star commuter rail line from Big Lake to St. Cloud. That was approved in your Senate last night. What do you think about that?
Well, I have mixed feelings about rail and those projects. I think that line is I think for every rider we compensate that by about $22 or fund that for $22 per way per rider. So not crazy about the light rail. I really see our money goes into roads and bridges and seen done that way. There's a lot of commerce that's done on the highways and through the roads and bridges, so I focus more on that. I'm a bigger supporter of the roads and bridges than the rail line.
So I'm guessing you voted no.
Well, what our bill was last night is a compromise between everybody. So all our bills are put into one omnibus bill, and you have to vote on the whole bill as a whole. So that's the give and take of the way those bills are put together. So as part of that, I voted in the end. I voted in favor of the entire bill, but the entire bill is from Health and Human Services to transportation to environmental to everything is in that bill. So you really have to decide if there's enough good things in that bill to vote in favor of it, which I did, but you don't always agree with everything that's in there, unfortunately.
Well, we could have a show for the next week to talk about the sense in that, right?
Absolutely, we could, yeah. And it's frustrating coming up there. It's the one thing you didn't want to see, but when you get up here, and that's the way it works, I guess. Not always so happy about that, but you do have to look at the overall, what's the good and the bad in the bill, and everybody has different ideas on what they think is the best for transportation. I don't agree with some of those things, but you have people in the St. Cloud area and people that believe in that, so you have to make some trade-offs, unfortunately. And again, you hope that the overall good of the bill does what you want, and sometimes you have to take the pieces you don't like as much to make it get done.
Yeah, but they should stand on their own.
Yes, that's what we hear a lot. That we get pointed our fingers that our bills are done that way. But from what I've understood before I came here, the other side of the aisle did the same thing. So I guess that's what happens, and you try to ask for more separate bills as we do. But this one was the supplemental, and it included about 11 different sections. As I said, from state government to energy to transportation to higher ed to K-12 to health and human services. So there's a lot of stuff in that bill. I think it was 577 pages.
Wow. How many people can actually read all 577 pages?
Exactly. I don't think anybody does. You focus on the areas that your expertise, for example, me in transportation. I have transportation, state gov, local government, and pensions and bonding, and so you focus on those areas, and you rely on summary sheets on the other issues that are in there, and then you also rely on your other fellow senators that serve in those committees to ask a lot of questions. What's in there? Is it good or is it bad? And sometimes you just have to rely on someone you trust up here as a fellow senator that's in those committees. Example, I have a very good friend, Paul Anderson, who offices next to me, who's heavily involved in the E12 and the higher ed, and you ask a lot of questions. And you have to decide, you kind of watch what they feel on some of those issues.
Is Highway 14 in there?
Highway 14 specifically is not in the bill. That's what we're going to try and get done in bonding. We'll probably have a bonding bill that will, be about $825 million. We'll try and get in the bonding bill. We also have it in what's called the Corridors of Commerce, and that was submitted. We're waiting for the results of that right now, and those are projects like Highway 14 that communities put in, and they get graded basically. And last year, my bill is the one that funded that for $350 million statewide. So we, as the community or Highway 14, put in a request for our funding for either a certain section of it or the whole section, and MnDOT looks at those, grades those proposals, and decides which ones that they will fund. And that results are supposed to be on April 14th, and we haven't seen them yet. I think that was due to the high volume of people submitting projects, but hopefully we'll see that very soon. And I think based on the Highway 14 needs, that should fall on the top of the list or very close to the top of the list. So that's our biggest hope, to see Highway 14 get done along with the bonding bill.
Are you confident that that'll happen?
I don't want to say confident and jinx it, but I'm getting somewhat good vibes from MnDOT, but you don't know. I guess you just don't know at this point. I've only been up here for 14 months, so you really hope for it. And every time I'm in a meeting, I talk about Highway 14, the importance, and that's carrying over through a lot of legislators are understanding that need. So hopefully that we'll get that, and MnDOT makes the correct decisions. We do get frustrated by talking to MnDOT and asking our needs, and they seem to not do what the legislature is telling them. So that does get frustrating.
Yeah. Well, you pointed it out earlier, too. I mean, every area of the state has some urgent need in terms of roads and bridges.
Mm-hmm.
We're behind.
I think another example is Highway 10 up in Wadena. They have some issues with some Highway 10 coming through there, and some crossings and railroads and some water issues. So, I would say every community has an issue like that, but there's a lot of communities that do have that same needs as we have on Highway 14, or feel that they have the need for that. So you have to respect that, and you have to hope that MnDOT makes the right choices. I also sponsored a bill last year that gives some transparency, so they don't just sit in a dark room and decide which projects get done. They have to show why they're graded as they are, and why one project doesn't get picked over another. So it's more transparency, so we can see why Highway 14 is or isn't getting chosen, or Highway 10 is or isn't getting chosen, and make it much more transparent. So hopefully that will help this year. It's the first year that program has been in effect, so anxious to see those results.
I know you're in the Senate. The sit-in happened in the House, right?
For the gun issue?
Wasn't it in the House, or was it in the Senate?
No, it was in the House.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
But I just want to get your take on whether or not you think that's effective or not to stage that sort of a protest.
I'm not a fan of that. No, I don't think that's the way to get it done. I think at the end of the day, I think there's only 3 people remaining in there. Later, of what I heard, I didn't get too involved in it because I had a couple other meetings going on. But I'm not a fan of it, but I know everybody has that right to do that, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, there has been a lot of talk. Gun issues have been talked about a lot. What's your stance there?
Well, the biggest thing with these schools and these issues, I think it's mental health is our biggest thing that we need to look at, and school safety, and we're addressing that this year. We've got a lot of money that's going to be going towards mental health, not only the bricks and mortar, but some programs. School safety, I think we have about $19.8 million in the bill for that, and then another $10 million next year. And then also allowing each school district to address those the way they need to do it, so we don't put one plan of action and they can not doesn't fit their school district right. So I've talked to all 3 of the larger superintendents of Waseca, Faribault, and Owatonna, and they believe that's the best way to go. That school safety is the biggest thing. You'll always get in what I see as the politics of the gun issue up here. That they're going to use that and that issue, but I don't believe it's the gun issue. I believe it's the school safety and the mental health.
How much would, for example, Faribault School District get from this, or Owatonna, or Waseca for that matter, if you have the numbers?
I do not have the numbers in front of me. It's a pretty decent, and it's a split between one-time funding, which basically we say hardens the target, which allows them to do some single-point entry in those things. And talking to the school districts, most of those schools have already done that. The other funding is in long-term levy, allow the levy to increase for that, and that's for the CROs, the school resource officers that the police have. It's for more counselors. It's to address those issues. And from what I've talked to all the superintendents, the 3 of the big cities, they believe that the long term is the issue. It's not the hardening the target, because they've already done that.
MSAD, MSAB, they have any urgent needs for funding that you're involved in? Correctional facility here in Faribault?
Nothing on the correctional facility. We have some HEAPR money in for the academies. There's a safety corridor, a school safety corridor they have in, and they have some money in for, I think, a requested on a track. Obviously, I will sponsor all those bills, but what gets chosen and what does not is the tricky way. You have 2 bonding chairs, one in the House, one in the Senate. We obviously are going to, try and push our projects, but again, these guys have the tough choice of balancing, which projects get put in that bill and which don't.
I don't know why people always try to call me when I'm on the air.
I thought that was a timer that we were done, Gordy.
No. We've got a few minutes yet. If you've got a few minutes, I hope you have a few minutes.
Sure, absolutely.
Senator John Jasinski with us, Senate District 24. Are there particular pieces of legislation you're carrying you'd like to get the word out about and let us know how they're doing?
Oh, well, I think I have 50-some bills, so I got a lot of stuff out there. I've done a lot with the MNLARs. You know, the whole licensing program has been an issue. One of my bills gives $9 million back to our deputy registers, and that gets evenly distributed throughout the state based on the number of transactions they've had. These people, like example, the Hanscoms in Faribault run that deputy register's office very well. They've ran into issues where they have employee issues because they have to do overtime. The computers are going down. They're not working. There's just all kinds of issues there. So I have several bills on MNLARs to try and get that corrected by giving them some editing capabilities. I've been working with the auto dealers on those things as well. I have a bill with the auto dealers on MNLAR's issue. I have my slowpoke legislation, which has got a little bit of publicity. With if you're in the left lane, you need to move over if you're not moving with the speed of traffic. That one's in the bill that got approved last night.
I call them hangers.
Hangers?
Yeah, I call them hangers. People that hang out in the left lane, I call them hangers. They drive me crazy, so I'm glad that you got that because it's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's a good bill. Get a little bit of pushback on it. I don't have better things to do, but as I said, I got about 50-some bills, and a lot of them are very important. And some of them, I think this is a low-cost way, a relatively no-cost way of improving our traffic congestion around the state. The biggest thing is an example is between Faribault and Minneapolis. That's the areas that I'm pushing. That it's not inside the metro. Going down 494. That's tough because there's just so much traffic.
Right.
But on these stretches from or from Hinckley to Duluth or all those areas that are like that, there's just and some people have the attitude if I'm going 68, 70 miles an hour in the left lane, I don't have to move over, and we just need to change that for improving traffic flow. And traffic flows, as you and I know, it can go if in a 70-mile limit, it can go from 68 to 74. And that's a big difference right there. So if you have someone in the lane going 68 or 72 and you got faster traffic coming through, all I ask is you move over to the right lane, let the faster traffic move on, and if you want to pull back off in that lane, you can. But I just think that it improves traffic flow. I think Minnesota is one of the worst states that people just hang out in the hangars, as you said, hang out in that lane and just go along. So it's an easy way to improve traffic flow and help some of our congestion. So it's a simple bill. It's gotten a lot of publicity. It actually is in place now. We just changed the language a little bit, increased the fine, and then also put a public awareness campaign that MnDOT will have to do. You obviously see those digital billboards out there. They're MnDOT's informational boards. They could put that on there, slower traffic, move right, and all kinds of different things they can do to help urge drivers to use the left lane to pass and then get into the right lane.
Yeah, when you're preaching to the choir here, I'm not a big fan of hangers.
Yeah, no. And then the other thing that I just wanted to touch upon is a lot of bonding stuff coming up. I have a $100 million, actually it's a $200 million bill. The governor, we've always funded roads and bridges in our bonding bill, and the governor has virtually zero in it this year. And so I have a bill in that would put $100 million into the local road fund, and then $100 million into the local bridge fund. And cities and counties and areas can use that money as matches. For example, if you get a federal plan for some federal money for a road, you can use this money for the local to put their portion in, and it just makes all kinds of great things happen in our highway and bridge system. We have about, I can't remember what the exact numbers now, but I think 50% of our roads and 35% of our bridges are over 50 years old. So I think that's a very, very important thing that we have to keep putting money into. Again, the commerce, and I drive the road a lot, and I know you do as well. You look at the commerce that's on these highways, and not only moving people, but the commerce that travels on these roads. We just need to make sure that these roads are in good shape and that can continue to make that commerce travel between cities and states.
How big a bonding bill should we have?
I think the governor's proposal is at 1.6. I think the House target is at 825. I think we're going to be right in that same range, about 800 to 900 million. I'm sorry if I didn't say million, but $800 to $900 million.
Yep.
If you go over that, you got to start taking money from the general fund to fund that, so or to finance that. So in the $800 million range. We have enough in our surplus to fund that. So that's what we would like to see.
So did you say the governor's proposal is $1.6 billion?
That's correct. That's the last number that I saw was 1.6. And talking up here, the House, I think, is the House of Representatives at $825 million, and we'll probably be right in that $800 to $900 million range.
Well, it is his last year, so...
Yeah, and a lot of his bonding money is going towards colleges, and we understand that those colleges are important, but it's just a huge number that's going in. And there's a lot of HEAPR needs, or basically the maintenance, the roofs, the HVA systems, and those things. There's a request in by the city of St. Paul for $58 million for a parking ramp across from the River Center. There's just a lot of requests. I think the total requests out there are $3.6 billion. So, and that's from local trails and projects and parks and roads and colleges and you name it. That's the requests out there, but that's just a lot of money. So we'll have to trim that down. And I think it'll be in that $900 million range by the time we're done, hopefully.
And I think I read
last year we had a 900. I think it was 996 or 993 million. Basically about $1 billion in our bonding was from the year before. So. Even years are bonding years, which the 2018 is a bonding year. Odd years are a budget year, but they did not get a bonding bill done in 2016, so we got one done last year to make sure that that's a big thing throughout the state for construction jobs and those things and infrastructure improvements, so it's very important. So I hope that we'll get another, I'm assuming with the governor being his last year, I'm assuming he's going to okay some type of a bonding bill in that range.
Well, and you know what the governor has said, he will not in any way, shape, or form agree to a special session.
I sure hope not. I don't think we will. I think we'll get it done. We've been working on it, and I would say overall, we get along pretty good in the Senate across the aisle. So I think that helps. I can't talk about the House on how things are going over there. I just don't spend enough time over there, but.
Sure.
I think we understand pretty good that we got to get some things done. We obviously there's certain things in your your values that you're not going to agree with that you can't get through. But I think overall we've been working pretty good, and that was my goal, was to come up here and try and work bipartisan to get things done. And I work heavily on that. I try and hang out with the DFL as much as I can to get some understanding of what they're thinking, and I think that's good to have those relationships. You know me, I'm a pretty much of a relationship guy, so I think that's important to work on that. If you're going to come in and argue all day, you're never going to get anything done. So if you can have the capability of at least having a relationship and talking about your issues, you have a much better chance of getting things done. So I continue to try and work on that every day.
Well, you're all trying to do your jobs, regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Everybody wants to get something done. Just some of those core values, it's going to be tough to agree on. So you have to find some type of a compromise on those tougher issues.
People want to get a hold of you, John. How do they go about doing that?
They can call up here at the Capitol. My number is 651-296-0284. If you go on the Minnesota Senate website, you have links to my email that you can send in. I have a full-time legislative assistant that takes those calls and gets that information to me, and we respond to those people. So I'm happy to do that. If anybody wants to come up and see the Capitol, it's a little busy now, but I'm happy to do that. We have probably 5 to 10, maybe 15 constituents a week that come up and kind of set up an appointment to meet with me. So I'm happy to do that. That's actually I enjoy that very much versus the lobbyists and some of those people. So I love to see people from the district come up, and it's neat. People should come up and see the office. And as you said in the beginning of the show, I would happy to do something from up here and stay in touch with the people in District 24.
Well, I haven't been to the Capitol since you renovated it, so.
Well, have to come up, Gordy. I'll give you a tour anytime.
We'll have to get that done. By the way, refresh our memory, your district covers what areas again?
Well, it's the three bigger cities are Otana, Faribault, Waseca. I go all the way down to Ellendale, Medford, Morristown, Claremont, Nearstrand. It's basically 4 counties. It's Steele County, Rice County, a portion of Dodge County, and a portion of Waseca County. So four different counties. The majority of Steele County, the southern half of Rice County, or most of Rice County, I should say. And Yeah, so I think it's 80,000 people, as you know. It's about 80,000. Each Senate district is about 80,000 people, plus or minus 1%. So it's a good number of people.
Yeah. Are you enjoying it?
I do, Gordy. I enjoy it a lot. I think it takes a while to kind of get the hang of things up here, but I do enjoy it. I get a lot of positive comments wherever I go and throughout the district that people watch what I'm doing. We try and put out as much as we can on our website or on our emails and try and get information out what's going on up here. So, yeah, I do enjoy it, and it's fun to get the positive comments. Obviously, you always get a couple bad ones, but overall I've gotten very positive comments. I was just very honored to get an award by GoPac as an emerging leader, where I'll travel to Chicago this summer in June for a 5-day, all expenses paid by GoPac, and it tries to educate leaders that they believe will move on to the next level. So I'm very excited about that. A lot of good policy training out there in Chicago for 5 days.
All right. Thanks, John. I'll let you get back to work. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Gordy.
Senator John Jasinski, District 24, State Senator. Certainly appreciate John taking time out of his busy schedule, trying to keep you updated more as the session is winding down here. You're in tune to KDHL AM, Faribault, Minnesota.